All right, welcome to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman coming to you, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes after one of the most ridiculous, wild, crazy Rutgers football games in program history. Rutgers trailing Michigan State 24-6 entering the fourth quarter, and they win the game 27-24 on homecoming in the game they had to have to continue forward momentum on this season. But, and I wrote about before the game, I thought it was a seminal moment, this game and next game, just for the program in general. And I still believe that because in that third quarter, when Rutgers was just bleeding out very slowly and it was extremely painful, you couldn't help but wonder, was this missed opportunity, this what looked like a missed opportunity, was this going to pile on perception, continue the narrative that this program hasn't gotten over the hump, and result in another losing season? If you didn't have that thought, if you're a diehard longtime Rutgers fan, you had the thought. It's okay. Admit it. I had it. We all are allowed to admit that. We all thought, oh no, here we go again. And it was an incredible comeback. Obviously, Michigan State, dropped the ball, literally. They have been plagued by falling apart at the end of games, most notably Iowa before this game. And credit Rutgers for being there and taking advantage. What I want to go back to, and listen, this team has some struggles, right? They have some issues. They're not a 9-win team. They might just be a 6, maybe 7-win team. That might be what they are. But you know what? That is progress. And the fact that this team never quit, stuck together, as Shiano and everyone likes to say, and I try not to say it that often because it's a program thing, but it's they kept chopping. They kept chopping, and it was great to see. And it speaks to the culture of this program. It speaks to the leadership of this program. And that, to me, is the biggest takeaway, is that this is a game that this program would not have won in a long time. They wouldn't have. Even last year, they wouldn't have won this game. And to see them come back the way they did, obviously they got some breaks, but they executed to almost flawless execution, other than that the snap where Appleby couldn't get the hold down and they couldn't get the extra point attempt off. Other than that, they were basically flawless in the fourth quarter. So you go back to, obviously, Michigan State's up 24-6. They're deep in Rutgers territory. They go to punt. They muff the punt. The punter fumbles it. Aaron Young falls on it in the end zone. Unbelievable play. And I tweeted it. I think people misinterpreted it. I said, I'm not going to say it. And what I meant by that was, I'm not going to say, here comes the comeback, or can they actually do this? Wasn't going to say it. Didn't say it. And then Rutgers gets the stop. They get the ball back. And then Kyle Monangai takes over. Had over 100 yards rushing in the fourth quarter. I believe it was 108. He finished with 24 carries, 148 yards, 6.2 yards per carry, and was phenomenal. And similarly to last year at Michigan State, was an L, but was phenomenal in that game too. And what is the similarity aside from playing Michigan State? His former high school teammate Jalen Berger is on the other team. And Mike Teal said it, because yes, I do listen to the radio. I had it on, but I always listen to the play-by-play. And this proves it, because one Mike Teal, who is the former head coach of Don Bosco, where Jalen Berger and Kyle Monangai played for, everyone has told him his entire career, Jalen Berger is better than him. That's what Mike Teal responded when asked by Fooch, why does Kyle Monangai always play his best, run his hardest, and just have such big games against Michigan State? I love Mike Teal. I've had him on the podcast several times, and I just love that he was that honest in the moment. And it's just awesome to see Kyle Monangai. I mean, he really is such a great story, because he wasn't ever really given a lot of credit, and he he is reasserted himself in this performance as the team's MVP. He has been so big for them. And to see him do it, and just to know personally, that this kid has felt slighted for his whole career. And he just went out and just outplayed. And, this is no disrespect to Berger. He's a good player. He was a high level recruit. He played at Wisconsin, played at Michigan State. He averaged over 4 yards a carry today. He's a fine player. But Monungai has used it to motivation to just make himself into the player he's become. And to see what he did today in that fourth quarter. And what's wild, the most wild thing about the comeback is that Rutgers did it in like 5 minutes. They took the lead in 5 minutes. So they got the ball back. Monungai basically leads him down the field. And then listen, I know people are upset with Gavin Wimsatt. He had some bad throws in this game. He also made some great throws. By the way, that second interception was a David Anderson special that he said on the podcast this week. If you throw up the middle and you get too much air on it, it's definitely going to be picked. And it was. That first pick went off of Ian Strong's hands. It was a little high. I think it's 50-50. I think Strong could have potentially caught it. But, it was high. So accuracy is still an issue. But credit Wimsatt with the game on the line. You're down 2 scores. He's at the goal line. He completes a touchdown to Isaiah Washington. And then he converts that 2-point conversion to Dremel. And listen, for me, the biggest takeaway on Wimsatt, both today and this season, is that he has become a mentally strong player. And he was not last year. He wasn't. And although he still has some struggles, although he has accuracy issues, although I know, and people got mad at me this week when I said don't give up on him, and don't believe that he's ever going to develop into a winning quarterback. I mean, for me, he proved it again today in terms of his mental toughness. For him to be able to stick it through. I mean, he did a little bit last week against Wisconsin, even though, the issue was kind of no longer in doubt. He did, have that touchdown pass late in the game and made some big throws. He didn't. Last year, he would have been derailed by mistakes, by adversity. He wouldn't have recovered. And this year, he is. And that is a huge growth step. It really is. And to see him be able to make those 2 throws down the stretch, and get them within striking distance, to get them within 1 score, to come through under pressure, that was a big step. That was a big step for him, and I think it can be it's not a jumping off point, but it's a progression for him. It really is, and I think that needs to be noted. If you're not going to give him, some credit for winning this game, I'm going to say that you're just biased against him, that you just think he stinks. But I really think that it's up and down. He has some bad moments, but that was a big moment for him. In not only just in this game, but in his career. At Rutgers, that was big. Christian Dremel, let's talk about him. What a player! I didn't. I has emphasized Strong and Jackson needing to be more involved, and I still stick by that. But at the same time, I mean, Dremel today was fantastic. What did he have? He was targeted 7 times. He had 6 catches for 80 yards. He had a long of 29. But that 2-point conversion was massive. It was massive because then Rutgers, and this was a great coaching decision in terms of Michigan State for the second kick in a row, lining up 10 guys, preparing for an onside kick. And on the second kick after the second score, so it's 24-21 Michigan State, Rutgers called a short kick, not an onside kick, but a short kick over the 10 defenders, 10 guys on special teams. And Thomas Amankwa was able to recover on the Michigan State 21-yard line. That was coaching, outclassing the Michigan State interim staff, or well, not the interim staff. They're all there during Mel Tucker, it's just interim coach. But it was a tremendous job of the coaching staff there. And then first play from scrimmage, Monungai just burst down the sideline, 21 yards, gets a touchdown. Now, like I said, Rutgers didn't convert the extra point. But that, even though Michigan State never threatened and the defense stopped them, getting that 2-point conversion gave you a 3-point lead versus a 1-point lead. So even if they did give up a field goal, it still would have been a tie. So that was massive in the moment. The defense, embattled. They gave up that touchdown after the fumbled punt return by Rashad Rochelle. I don't even know why he was trying to recover it in terms of catching the punt. That was just a bad decision. and I'm sure it's coachable. He'll learn from it, but Michigan State scored right away. So really, you take that touchdown off the board. That was a tough one to count against the defense. The defense played well. They only allowed 200 and something yards. What was it? 245 yards. Now, Michigan State did have 23 first downs. The key was, too, also, Rutgers was 1 of 9 from third down conversions, and they converted their last 3 in the game. So that was huge. Both teams had 3 turnovers. I mean, that was a ton. Penalties, Rutgers had 6 penalties, but I believe 0 in the second half. They were all in the first half. So that first half was definitely the worst first half Rutgers has played this season. But again, mentally strong. They kept chopping. They were able to come back. And the crazy thing, I'm rambling like, crazy right here, but they had the lead with 8 minutes. They were trailing with 13 minutes to go by 18 points. And 14 minutes, whatever it was, they were trailing entering the fourth quarter by 18 points, 24-6, and they're leading with 8 minutes to go. And they got the stop, and then Monungai just ran it, and Rutgers was able to run time off the clock, and they ran out the clock, and Michigan State never had another chance. So that was, great execution by the offense. You got to tip your hat to the offensive line. It was an up and down. They allowed 3 sacks, but still, this was it was a mixed performance overall. How they get graded out, I'm sure they won't, show up that great in the grading system with Pro Football Focus, but a win is a win is a win. And as a program, to take that next step forward, you have to win games like this. You have to win games when it's ugly, when you don't play that well. It's much easier and it's much better to have many coachable moments, to be able to constructively criticize and review some bad film with your team and your players after a win. And for them to be able to get this, it's huge on so many levels. By the way, Desmond Ibenusim was just an absolute monster this game. What a performance on defense for him. I don't even know what his stats were. I just dropped my phone. I'm a mess. I honestly, this is as rapid as it gets. This is as raw as it gets because I was just a mess. Did not want to do this when they were losing 24-6. I was, just saying to myself, what did I get myself into? I'm going to have nothing nice to say. I really don't want, I'm just going to have 10 minutes of blank air. Anyone that listens to this on Spotify or Apple is just not, you're going to think it didn't work. I had nothing positive to say other than certain guys, showed up and a lot of others didn't. But at the end of the day, everybody showed up in that fourth quarter. It was a total team effort. Everyone did something, and it was beautiful to see. And they're 5-2. They're 5-2. They're 1 win away from making a bowl game. I'm already wrong. I picked them to win 4 games this season. I couldn't be happier. And this just was one of those games that, I wrote before the game. It was a seminal moment, these next 2 games. And I just thought when they were losing, it just was going to be bad. The fallout was going to be bad with the fan base. Momentum for this team was going to be tough to get back. Going to Indiana next week, after a loss like this, right before your bye, it was, certainly a trap game. I think the way they lost at Northwestern 2 years ago, physically, they had nothing in that game. So you still have to respond. Excuse me. But they now will go to Bloomington, Indiana, a place they won 2 years ago, dominated 2 years ago, a team they've beaten 2 years in a row, with the opportunity to get a win and earn bowl eligibility, become bowl eligible for the first time in 9 years. Yes, they went to a bowl game 2 years ago, but they didn't earn bowl eligibility with the 6 wins. Doesn't mean it doesn't count. Of course it counts, but this is a step for the program if they can achieve that. And in year 4, with so much on the line with recruiting, with the Big Ten expanding with all 4 Pac-12 teams next year, despite the East going away, it's still going to be a challenge every year with this schedule. This is it's hugely important, hugely. And for them to get this win today in homecoming, it was rainy. I mean, it just was like a nightmare. And they persevered. They persevered. And the mental toughness of this program was on display. And it doesn't mean it was a pretty performance. It doesn't mean this team is not flawed. in several areas, and they are, and I'm sure Shiana will admit that he has already. But this is a step. This is a step in terms of being able to win this type of game. Every winning program has to be able to win these types of games. And yes, Michigan State's a mess right now. It's just a real um, comparison of cultures right now. Rutgers is a strong culture team right now. They're a strong leadership team, and it showed up when it mattered most in this game. And hats off to everybody in terms of them being able to pull this off is really phenomenal. And again, it's just amazing how the comeback was just so quick. It was like three things, boom, boom, boom. And yeah, I'll brag a little bit. I had special teams as an X factor in my predictions for this game, and it turned out to be true. I get a lot wrong. I got that one right. And it's special teams play was not perfect by any means, but at the end of the day, special teams is what got Rutgers back into the game, and they were able to execute down the stretch. It's a beautiful thing. They're one win away from bowl eligibility, and this is one to celebrate. This is one to savor. It's going to be a big week ahead. The Indiana game, by no means, nothing's ever easy, especially for Rutgers in any sport. If you're a longtime fan of Rutgers, you know that. And, next week is not going to be easy at all. I think Indiana's defense is pretty solid. So, buckle up. That's all I could say. But buckle up, strap in, folks. Rutgers is 5-2. They're one win from bowl eligibility. They're 2-2 in the Big Ten. They're right there in the middle of the pack. This was just crazy, and I'm glad I don't have any more hair because I would have lost it today anyway. And I hope you have a drink, whatever you want to do responsibly. Be safe. But this was certainly one that we'll remember for forever, and hopefully even more so because it leads to a bowl game. Thanks for listening and watching the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again.